Take a look at this shot here. Did you see it? Well, take another look, but this time focus on the cabinet at the back. You can see that they've animated a reflection of the character walking by, and then also applied a blur effect over the top. This is actually way more impressive than you might think. Let's take a look at another shot and I'll show you why. How many characters are in this scene? 2? Or maybe you said 3 because you can see where I'm going with this. And yes, the answer is 3. I am cheating by using the reflection, but here's the thing. From an animation standpoint, that reflection is basically another character. You see, unlike 3D animation where you can use maths to figure out a reflection, or real life where you can use physics to figure out a reflection, when it comes to 2D animation, we haven't quite figured that one out. And so when you see a scene like this, yes, you could just copy the character out and then paste them into the background onto the mirror. However, the second the character or the camera rotate even slightly, suddenly those two images no longer match up, and you just have to draw them separately as if they were 2 different characters. And this gets even more complicated because characters are one of the hardest things to draw. It's why whenever you have a crowd of characters, even 2D shows will fall back on 3D animation as a way to fill out that crowd, because 3D animation is so much faster and cheaper when it comes to scaling up. So drawing one character is probably faster than creating a 3D version of them. However, drawing 100 individual characters will be way more difficult than simply copying a 3D model. Now, the other place where 3D animation is often used in 2D animation is when you have multiple characters doing the same complex movements as each other. In other words, dancing. Now, all of this setup has been for this because this show is about dancing. It's about Japanese idol groups specifically. And yet somehow for every single dance that we see in this show, they are using 2D animation. At least almost all 2D. There are a couple of shots you can see they're using 3D, or at least I think they are. The characters are really far away, but the movement is just stiff enough that makes me think that it's just a model. So why is that a big deal? Well, 3D animation can be tricky. If not implemented well, it can be somewhat controversial, and a lot of that is because when you take a 3D model and put it on a 2D plane, you can sometimes get disconnection, and that can upset fans. That can be a really tricky balance to find. In fact, most shows, especially in the first season, will almost always lean on using 3D models. And this show in its first season has decided to hand draw every dance scene, including this one with a full set of members. Now, maybe we've reached the point where 3D animation can be made to look like 2D animation. I know there are some shows that are getting very close, but I don't think that this is the case here. And that's not the only thing this show does that's crazy. Let's go back to the reflections for a second. Starting with this cabinet from before, which actually gets used in a variety of ways. Here, they've actually used it to show a character before they enter frame. And then they did it again here. And then you got this one here where you have multiple characters overlapping. And then they've animated each of those characters separately. Keep in mind what I said about characters being the most difficult thing to draw. Here, they've not only doubled up every single character, they've more or less created a whole new scene for something that you're probably not even gonna notice. And it goes beyond that. There's a table in this room that is also reflective. And when it is reflecting stuff, it's usually very minor. Most of the time it's reflecting someone's hand. And in this scene, you can only just see the character's mouth moving. This is a crazy amount of detail that I would not have expected to see or have ever seen. So why put in all this effort? Why add these little details, these reflections that no one's gonna see? Well, there's 2 possible reasons here. The first is that this show is very much about performances. It's about actors, it's about idols, it's about streamers. It's about people who need to be able to look at themselves and understand what they're doing and what they're projecting out into the world. We even see the characters in front of mirrors in several episodes training, making sure that they can see what they're doing. So to have those reflections carry on into other parts of their lives, to have them in social situations, talking with their friends, with their family, and still having these reflections appear, show just how much they're continuing this act, continuing a performance even into their own lives. And then there's the other possibility, which is that the animators are just flexing on us, which is totally possible. Animators do like to flex. Actually, if you've seen this show, there's probably quite a few details that you've missed. So I scrubbed through the entire first season to try and find as many as I could, and I put them in this video right here.